Hi guys, we're here at the Care2Grow mushroom farm today. We're located in Naples, Florida. We're a small-scale gourmet and medicinal mushroom farm. We produce mainly mushrooms for our local market, and then we also produce some medicinal mushrooms that are sold nationwide through our website at care2grow.com with the number 2, CARE2GROW.com. We're going to give you a little rundown of what we do here and how we started. We actually started this farm in December of 2019. We started as a small-scale production, producing on lime pasteurized straw and using barbecue pellets and hot water to produce some of our wood saffrobes. But mainly we grew oyster and shiitake and lion's mane. We're now growing over 9 different varieties of mushrooms, from reishi, turkey tail, lion's mane, many different varieties of oyster, king oyster, and in the summer we produce reishi mushroom and turkey tail on sawdust. Here you can see a little bit of the farm, how it has grown. We actually produce all the mushrooms inside of these 3 containers. We have 1 tractor trailer and 2 40-foot shipping containers. Essentially, these 2 containers support the growth of the fruiting container. The 1 container that we use is a grow room, and there'll be a tour of that later on in this, and you'll be able to see all the different steps of production and how we produce them on a small scale here. There's many ways to produce mushrooms. Mushrooms are incredibly versatile in their ability to digest different types of substrates, from agricultural waste to even some human waste like cardboard and spent coffee can be used as a substrate to produce mushrooms. So finding a locally available resource to you can be a way that you could start a small-scale mushroom farm production in your area and produce enough mushrooms to grow and sell at local farmers markets or even to local area restaurants, creating a high-value crop that's basically grown right where it's consumed.
So there are definitely many different substrates that you can use to grow mushrooms. All the mushrooms that we're growing are primary saffrobes, so what that means is that they decay lignum and cellulose. Lignum and cellulose is essentially the cell wall of plants and trees. So we can find many woody substrates that are devoid of nitrogen that are going to provide a base substrate for these primary saffrobes or white rot mycelium to digest. I've actually experimented when I first started using ground cardboard and coffee. That production was difficult because of the contamination, but on small scale it can be kind of interesting and rewarding. I also grew on straw. Straw is actually a readily available resource you can find in a lot of places. You can get big straw bales, and you'll use like a cold pasteurization technique. You can use heat pasteurization. We kind of settled on using wood pellets and pelletized animal feed, which is another product that you can find pretty locally, rurally. You can normally find wood pellets sold as barbecue pellets, and you can find soy hulls or oat hulls or rice hulls sold as an animal feed supplement. So if you have those local agricultural resources, it's easy to use these kinds of products, but there's many other substrates, combinations that can be made if you find something local to you that you can use to feed mushroom substrates, to feed to mushrooms as their substrate. We actually buy our media in bulk because we don't have a lot of local resources. We buy it from a company called Mushroom Media here in the U.S. But there's definitely a lot of different things that you can feed to mushrooms. All right, so we're gonna put the wood pellets in the Thor. The Thor is our bag making machine. It just helps us measure the different quantities of substrates. We mainly use oak wood pellets. So this machine is set up to do 75% oak to 25% supplementation. Our supplementation can vary. We use organic oat hulls or organic soybean hull, or we can also use like rice bran or wheat bran as our supplement. We found that a good mix between oat and soy is a good mix for our shiitake blend. So this is the supplement. This is our soy hull, and we're mixing it today with a little bit of oat hull to do our shiitake blocks. So soy and oat and rice are just a few of the things that you could use to supplement. You can grow mushrooms on a variety of substrates. When I first actually started my production here at the farm, we were actually growing on straw, on wheat straw and rice straw. And we would do something called cold pasteurization with lime. So it's a process that can be done in a lot of different places depending upon what agricultural resources are available for your mushroom production. And then you're also gonna try and suit your available resources to the mushrooms you want to produce. So all the mushrooms that we grow on the farm here are what are known as primary saprobes. So their main food is lignum and cellulose. So their main food is sawdust, really. They really like sawdust. So we use these special mycological bags. These bags are made from polypropylene, which allows us to heat treat our substrate after we bag it. This bag has a special Tyvek filter. These filters come in different micron sizes that allow gas exchange out of the bag during incubation of the fungus. This particular filter is a 0.3 micron, so it's going to be very high filtration and a low gas exchange, but it's going to allow carbon dioxide to leave the bag as the mushrooms respirate. So our substrate mix today, we're going to end up making, this bag can hold about a 12-pound block, but we have about a 10-pound block on average. Our 10-pound block consists of roughly 4 pounds of dry substrate to 6 pounds of water. So this machine has actually been calibrated volumetrically to measure out the 75% oak wood pellets to the 25% supplementation. This is a great machine. This machine is made by a company called Manowar out of Tennessee here in the U.S. It's kind of redneck, but they're doing some new stuff now. It's actually really neat. This bagger's been great for us. It was a relatively inexpensive way to enter into a higher rate of production. We used to do this by hand with a scoop. So, and you could do that anytime you wanted. You know, it's about measuring and weighing it. And then, like what we did was we created a standard. I just used a bucket that was the right size for the substrate, and we'd fill it with substrate, and then we had a pitcher that had a measure mark on it, and that was how we would fill the water. So this is great, though. This does both. So once the bag's filled, we're going to let it drip. You can see the hydration is just taking place. So we're going to put it in our little bag holder, and that's going to hold the bag. So by the time I get basically to the third or fourth bag, the first one will be ready for me to fold. So it's kind of important at this step to do a good job folding for these bags, and this is exclusively when you're doing a synthetic log technique for production. So we manually fold all our bags. We're just going to try and get some of the air out, and then we're going to fix these little gussets. And that's it, and the bag's going to sit, and it'll absorb the water. You almost can make 5 bags and wait to start with this. And this is shiitake. It takes a little longer because there's more wood. The supplement seems to suck up the moisture more readily. We're going to show you how to hand make a substrate bag by using a scale to weigh out your substrate and your water. So from our experience, we know that our bags are going to be roughly 60-40 by weight. So we're going to end up with about 4 pounds of substrate to 6 pounds of water. So first I'm going to use a container, and this is going to give you the process. And if you want to standardize your process, you can just get one container and then mark the volume, and you don't have to weigh each one. But this is going to let you figure out how you can adjust or calibrate your own containers to make these bags over and over again, kind of by hand. As I showed you before, we use a machine, but this is how I used to do it when I first started, This is great for small scale production. If you're on your own, you could easily make 25, 50, even 100 bags in one day and get a pretty good production, small scale production of mushrooms out of a small space, either in your garage or if you have an outbuilding or even on your back porch. So first I'm going to put the container on my scale and I'm going to zero my container out so that I know the weight of the container. And then I'm going to start just by weighing out some wood pellets. So we're going to do a 25-75 mix for growing shiitakes today. So I'm going to weigh this out. So I got about a pound there. One more. And then I'm almost at 3 pounds there. So I know that's about 75% of my mix, because I told you our total mix is going to be 4 pounds total. And then I'm going to add 1 scoop of the soy. I need to put a little tiny bit more. There. That's going to get us to 4 pounds. So there you can see on the scale we have 4 pounds. That's our dry substrate. And it's roughly 75-25%. 25% supplementation to 75% wood. And you're going to pour it in the bag. We're going to place our bag in our little handy dandy bag holder, which I recommend you can make, or you can actually just buy like Tupperware shoe boxes. Those actually work really well. You can fit the bag in there if you're not handy at making stuff. So it's something simple you can use. So we're going to weigh the water, and I recommend if you're going to create your own graduated cylinders that you have one separate, one that you can mark for the dry substrate and one that you can mark for the water. So we're going to zero this out again. So the scale says 0, and then we're just going to add 6 pounds of water. I think we can get 6 in here. We'll see. If we get to 3, we might do it in 2. That's 3 pounds, so we're not going to fit all 6 in there. So we're just going to go 3. Again, maybe a little more water. Oh, nope. We're pretty close. We're right there. So that's 6 pounds of water. All right, to fold this bag, we're just going to wait. We're going to let the bag hydrate. You can see the water in there. It just takes a few minutes for it to absorb. This is when you're working with like pelletized substrates. All right, so this part of the process is actually, we don't have to be clean. There are further steps down the line where we need to be a little bit more clean in our production. So right now we've just filled these bags with fresh sawdust and our supplementation, and these bags are what we would consider dirty. So we use our bare hands and we just fill these with water. We're gonna actually take these blocks and we're gonna put them through a heat treatment process that's going to help reduce the potential of contaminants or other bacteria or funguses being in competition with the fungus we want to grow. We're going to show you that step next as we load the pasteurizer. Hi guys, we're here at the sterilizer. This is actually a pasteurizer. I shouldn't call it sterilizer. Pasteurization occurs at about 165 degrees. So this machine is going to heat up our fresh blocks. These are our fresh blocks right here. We just made these. They haven't been heat treated, and they're going to end up in this barrel for heat treatment. So I'm just going to give you a quick view inside the barrel here. And in here you can see there's like a false floor, and below it is water, and in there is a heating element that's going to boil that water, and it's going to steam these blocks to raise the temperature of the blocks to 165 degrees, creating what we call super pasteurization. It's actually raised at about 200 degrees, and that's going to give us a window of opportunity to inoculate these fruiting substrate blocks with the funguses that we want to grow. So after the barrel runs its process, we're going to unload the hot blocks. I'm wearing waterproof heat resistant gloves because these blocks are very hot. So what we do is we just carefully pull the blocks out, and you can see they kind of change color from the raw block, and they're kind of shrunk down, and the air is gone out, so they're kind of sealed shut. We just load them up here on our cart,
And then these are going to go from the barrel into the lab to cool down. And tomorrow, after they're cool, then we can inoculate with the fungus we want to grow. So we're going to show you guys how we inoculate our blocks. This is a pretty high-tech way. We're going to do it in front of our HEPA filter, but we've actually even done open air inoculations and been successful. I think it really depends upon the rate at which you spawn. When we do it this way, we're able to spawn at about a 2% weight by volume. So we're actually going to take our spawn. Today what we're using grain spawn. We're going to clean our spawn bag with isopropyl alcohol. We're going to clean all of our work surfaces and our hands. This is 70% ISO. 70% is more effective than a higher concentration because of the water content. It allows the alcohol to more easily penetrate the cell walls of bacteria or funguses and then actually sterilize them. It takes roughly 30 seconds to sterilize it. You can use other chemicals to sterilize. Bleach, actually, a lot of people think is a pretty effective sterilizer, but it takes over 3 minutes for it to actually do its job, creating a sterile environment. So I'm just going to let my hands kind of dry. I'm doing a good job of rubbing between my fingers. As you can see, we're wearing a lab coat that's covering my street clothes. When you're doing inoculations like this, for sterile technique, it's best to kind of do them first. If you're doing this as a process, if you're your own farmer and you're doing every step of the process, this would be the first job I would do every day. I wouldn't wait till the end of the day when I've been playing around in compost or in the harvest room or doing other things. So I'm going to go ahead and actually clean my hands one more time. I think it's just my OCD for being sterile. And as you saw before, I cleaned the bag. So the spawn's actually already been broken up. We're going to cut the bag open, but just on the corner. Gives me a little spout that I can pour from. Trying not to enter the bag with my hands. I don't want to reach inside there. Just want to have this little spout. We keep the grain spawn as close to the hood because this filter, the cleanest space, is the closest to the hood. So we're going to keep the grain as close as we can to the hood in order to keep it sterile. Okay. These are our blocks after they've gone through the pasteurization process. So this block has been pasteurized. We've reached over 200 degrees, and then it's been cooled down to room temperature. So now this block is at room temperature, which is roughly 72 degrees here. We're going to open the bag, and as you can see during that heat process, a lot of the bag is really suctioned right down to the substrate. So we're going to open it up, and we're going to let some air into the bag. We're going to let the sterile air from the hood into the bag. We like to break this up a little bit, just makes it easier to inoculate. So we're going to break the block up. And then we're going to add the spawn. Careful not to reach into the bag. We're going to go just above the bag, and we're going to pour our spawn. So from experience, I know how much to pour, but that's roughly 2%. And we're going to heat seal the bag. It's a pretty fancy heat sealer. If you're doing a lot of bags like we are, it's great. But there are simpler heat sealers out there in the market that you can get that'll do just as good a job. So after I heat seal it, I visually inspect the seal, make sure that it's solid, and then this bag will actually go and then go to the next process where we mix the bag and mix the spawn in. So now we're in the laboratory trailer here, and these bags have been inoculated, so they've gone through the heat treatment process, and then the fungus that we want to grow has been placed in here. The bag is now sealed, been heat sealed across the top, so the only way for gas or anything to get in and out of this bag is through this filter. So after we introduce the mushroom fungus, we want to mix this bag in order to kind of evenly distribute it to promote even colonization. So we're just going to kind of break this by hand a little, and we're just going to roll it down, and then we've actually made a tumbler, and this is just an old dryer that we modified. We took the heating element out of it, and we actually took all the little thumpy fin things. I don't know what those are called, but anyway, out of the dryer. We have a little switch here that's going to let us turn it on. And we're going to put the bag in there for roughly a minute, 30 seconds to a minute, and it's just going to roll around, and that's going to kind of evenly distribute the fungus throughout the bag. So while that one's turning, I'm going to get the next one ready just by basically breaking the substrate up like this. I'm going to form this back into a block. So I'm going to stand this up, try to knock the substrate down to the bottom, and I'm going to condense it. When there's less space, when they're packed well, when there's less space between the grains, it's easier for the mycelium to grow throughout. We pre-make our little labels. This label just has a species code for us and a date. So that's going to let us know what's in this bag as this bag continues to colonize. So once I mixed it, it goes back on the cart. The next step will be to move it to incubation. So after the bags are inoculated, the mushroom mycelium is going to take a certain amount of time to colonize the substrate. So we're going to show you here, we can show you here that we inoculated these. Let's see, there's a date on here. We inoculated these on 1/24. And you can actually see the mycelium just starting to expand out into the bag. And then over time, the mycelium will consume the entire bag. So actually, this would be the next one here. These are all shiitakes. So shiitake does a very interesting thing where it forms this hard mycelial crust on the outside of the substrate block. And then it'll actually go to a third step with shiitake. It'll go to a phase we call browning. When we get to this browning phase, this is actually a visual indicator for us that the shiitake mushroom has solidified this block and is actually ready to start producing mushroom for us. So all of the species that we grow will need a certain amount of incubation time, and we're going to take you guys down and show you the other blocks that are incubating in order to go into production. So this is our incubation. So you can see the many different species that are in here incubating, and they're all going through the process of maturation in order to produce enough mycelium in order to gather strength to produce the mushroom. The mushroom is a very specific structure of the fungus that's designed just to basically make spores and send the next generation of fungal spores out into the environment. So we need enough mature mycelium or mature fungus to give rise to those mushrooms. Fungus is pretty happy if it has plenty of food to just continually grow without making a mushroom. It's not necessary for its life cycle, although it is part of the reproductive cycle of funguses like these. So one of the challenges of mushroom growing is to reduce competitor funguses or bacteria in our production logs. Although we are successful most of the time, we are not 100% successful, and I don't think anybody is, even if they tell you they are. So here, this is actually a contaminated shiitake bag. And these two bags are actually from the exact same date here. I have one uncontaminated and one contaminated. So both done on 12/15. And what you can see in this bag is you can see these stark margins of competition. And then you can see here too, you can see the green spores. These dark green spores are trike. Trichoderma is a common occurring soil microbe. It's super beneficial for the decomposition of planty matter that's going to become soil. But in our bags, it's a competitor for the food that we're feeding our shiitakes. So you can see how this bag is very immature, how there's just a little bit of mature mycelium over here, whereas in this bag, it's not in competition. You can see how healthy and mature the fungus is becoming. It's getting to that maturation age that we need for shiitake. This bag will be ready in another 3 weeks to produce shiitake mushrooms. This bag probably will continue to grow, but it will not produce nearly as many mushrooms, and it'll also probably take much longer to reach maturation. So it's really common to see these liquids inside of these mushroom bags, and these are what we call metabolites. So unlike us, fungus is an external digester, so it's producing digestive enzymes and fluids and exuding those out into the environment. Those fluids are kind of going ahead of the mycelium and breaking down or starting digestion. and then the mycelium will advance over and forward and continue to digest that digested substrate from producing those enzymes. These compounds, these metabolites, could potentially contain novel compounds like antibiotics and antiviral components. So I think that's where a lot of our initial antibiotics came from, like with penicillin. Penicillin mold creates these novel antibiotics when it's doing its job of digesting planting matter in its life cycle. So it's creating these antibiotics to protect itself from bacterial infection. And then we were actually able to transfer that because fungus is so close to us. We're able to take those antibiotics and use them for us. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of other novel compounds that some of these funguses are making in these bags with this metabolite. So here we are, we're in the fruiting chamber. After maturation of the block, we're going to change the conditions and help induce the fruiting of the fungus. So the fungus has consumed the substrate and is actually mature enough now to produce a fruit body. Here we can see a very interesting fungus. This is actually Hericium ericana, which is a cousin to the lion's mane mushroom. Common name for this is coral tooth or bear's tooth. We call it bear's tooth. It's a beautiful mushroom. This mushroom will be mature for harvest in another 3 days. Over here we can see some of the other blocks that are producing mushrooms. We can see the pin sets on our shiitakes. Shiitake is an incredibly powerful fungus. It's not only amazingly delicious, but it's really powerful for our immune system and in particular healthy for our livers. Here we can see our golden oysters producing. And we can see some differences in the production here. We have a shiitake block right next to it. You can see there's no bag on the shiitake block, and we still keep the bag on the oyster. And what we've done here is the oyster mycelium is sensing the oxygen. So when we cut a hole in the bag, it's picking up that there's a higher level of oxygen, and that's where it wants to produce its mushroom. The shiitake is doing the same thing, but it won't just go to the area because they're a little more robust in their ability to handle concentrations of CO2. So they'll actually produce all over the log. So we'll actually completely unwrap the log and let it fruit everywhere. We keep a little tray on the bottom to kind of exclude oxygen, that hopefully so it doesn't produce mushrooms on the bottom. As we move through the grow chamber, you can see many of the different varieties that we fruit. This is actually a really tasty gourmet mushroom. And this mushroom, we've actually tricked this mushroom into growing this long stem. The stem of this mushroom is tasty and crunchy. This is called Pio Pino. So when this mushroom first started fruiting, the bag was tall, and that was basically helping contain carbon dioxide and causing the mushroom to reach for the oxygen, forming this longer stem. It makes a really, really delicious, interesting mushroom to look at as well. As we move further into the container, you can see some of the other ones that we grow. This is lion's mane. This is Hericium erinacum. Lion's mane has some amazing purported medicinal benefits. Lion's mane has been shown to actually help promote nerve growth factor, which we think is helping relieve symptoms in neurodegenerative disorders like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia. It's also been shown to be really beneficial in aiding with focus. Lion's mane also contains compounds that aid with digestion. Overall, this mushroom is an incredible medicinal mushroom. It's also a very unique culinary mushroom, as its flavor is not very strong in mushroom, but kind of can take on different flavors. A lot of people are using lion's mane as a meat substitute because it's high in protein and because of its medicinal benefits. But it can be made to look like chicken or steak in a dish to kind of mimic those meats and create a meat replacement. But it's also just incredibly good on its own. Here we have some black pearl king trumpet. This is a mushroom that was crossed with a pearl oyster and a king trumpet, so it forms this meaty stem. This mushroom is delicious, but it's also super high in beta and alpha glucans. These are polysaccharides, which are sugars that are helpful in assembling our DNA.
All mushrooms contain polysaccharides. These polysaccharides are very essential to the assembly of our DNA. So mushrooms are protecting us at a cellular level. You can see in these mushrooms, they'll actually turn yellow when they bruise, and that's actually a visual representation of those polysaccharides. Again, different fruiting strategies where we have cut a flap in some of the bags, or we've actually tried to fruit on top of the bag. You can see here on these king trumpets here, you can actually see that yellow bruising. You can see when I bruise it, I don't know if you can see that. But those are actually the polysaccharides. That's actually a visual representation of those polysaccharides, that yellow staining. So king trumpet happens to be very high in alpha and beta glucans, so that's where it's beneficial for us. It's also, again, a really delicious, meaty culinary mushroom that can replace meat in many dishes. So in the fruiting chamber here, we're climate controlling the conditions to help induce the fruiting of mushrooms. We generally see mushrooms in a high humidity environment. A lot of times you'll see them after a rain in a shady area. So in here we don't have a lot of light, but we have quite the production of humidity. In our grow room setup, we're using ultrasound. In this box here, we built an ultrasonic humidifier. You can see the ultrasound producing the humidity. So a shout out to John at the House of Hydro. Thank you, John, very much for providing us the highest quality ultrasonic emitters. And then we control the climate. In here, we're actually conditioning the air before it enters this space in order to lower the temperature. We're growing in Southwest Florida, so our daily average temperature can get up over the 80s, but a lot of our mushrooms will actually grow and perform better down in the 60s. So we try to keep the temperature below 70 degrees inside of our grow chamber and about 95% humidity with the ultrasonic humidification. So actually in this room we have an air conditioner, you can see it. So we precondition the air before it enters the grow room. So in this room we have roughly 40% of fresh air coming in from outside, being preconditioned by our air conditioner to lower the temperature before it enters our grow room. Where mushrooms are respirating oxygen, very much like us. So carbon dioxide can easily build up in our grow chamber. So we want to make sure we're getting a good exchange of fresh air and exchanging the carbon dioxide out of the grow room.
Here we are, we're standing in front of our spent mushroom block pile, or our compost pile. Mushroom compost can be really beneficial to help building soils. Our compost pile will actually continue to fruit mushrooms. So we have a lot of local area permaculturists or vegetable gardeners or even community gardens. They'll actually buy our spent mushroom blocks and then they can use them in their gardens. Initially, if you take one of our blocks when it's a little fresher, you'll be able to plant it and get a little more production. As you can see here, our spent mushroom block is actually still producing mushrooms. So it's quite a beautiful golden oyster that actually grew in the compost. These blocks are really interesting because they're just made of sawdust, loose sawdust, but the mycelium is holding them together so well that it's almost impossible to break it apart. But as it decomposes, eventually it'll kind of break down and it'll turn into something like this. That's a little more easily broken down and consumed by bugs and insects and worms. This is actually one of the best foods for red wiggler worms. This will eventually break down even further into something that looks like this underneath here. And you can see all the different critters taking advantage of it. Here you can even see there's millipedes in here. And they're consuming mostly the fungus off of the sawdust here, and this sawdust is going to continue to break down. If you guys could smell this, this actually just smells like incredibly good earth or compost. It's full of biology, it's full of fungus, and it's a great amendment that's going to hold water. As you can see how well it sticks together because of the moisture content. And it hasn't rained here in a few days, and these blocks really will, that compost will really help retain moisture in a soil. So when building a garden bed or building a permaculture setup, adding spent mushroom blocks can be beneficial to helping build the soil life and protect that. We also feed our spent mushroom blocks to red wiggler worms here on the farm to produce vermicastings, which are again another beneficial byproduct of the mushroom farming that can be then used in traditional crop farming or raised beds or garden beds. So it's another product that comes just from the production of our mushrooms. So we have this great available resource of compost, and then also another additional addition by creating more value for our compost by recycling it with worms and creating a vermicompost product. So to make a value-added product, we'll actually vermicompost, and you can see our little whiteys here, our little red wiggler worms. And they're just basically eating our spent mushroom blocks. That's their main food substrate. Red wiggler worms are really beneficial for soil because they contain a very powerful microbe in their gut. That microbe bacteria is able to actually fix nitrogen from our atmosphere into the right form for plants. So it's not really a fertilizer per se, but a biological amendment that increases the health of the soil that makes nitrogen more available for green plants. It's an incredibly valuable product that we can just make by having these worm houses and feeding them our spent mushroom blocks. It's another revenue stream for a small-scale mushroom producer if they're willing to take the time to compost their blocks. So now you guys have seen what it takes to create a small-scale mushroom production. I think my number one tip for starting or a small farm person would be that when you initially start out, staying focused on maybe one mushroom species would be an ideal way to generate a new revenue stream. Just like anything, a small farm is a business, and once you have a revenue stream, you can then expand upon that. So I'd say if I was going back, when I first started, we were primarily growing oysters and lion's mane, and we were selling direct to consumer at farmers markets. As we've grown over the years, we've been able to add many other products and product lines to what we do here at the farm. I'm going to give you a quick example of these products right here. We have many value-added products that are made from mushrooms. We make our own value-added mushroom glycerin tinctures. We have shiitake, reishi, cordyceps, turkey tail, oyster, and lion's mane, all providing many different kinds of health benefits. I would say lion's mane is probably one of the ones that a lot of people are taking and know about today. Lion's mane has been shown to really help promote nerve growth factor and can be helpful in aiding digestion. A lot of people find that it helps with focus and attention. It also helps promote healthy digestion. And these are the mushrooms that we have here. These are the medicinal mushrooms. This is our reishi mushroom. It's a beautiful mushroom. It's a polypore. You can see on the bottom the little pores. And then this is turkey tail, all of which are grown here on our farm. Incredibly powerful medicinal mushroom, turkey tail. Turkey tail has a very powerful peptide called ketone. Really improves our gut health and our immune systems. So you can find Care2Grow at our local area farmers market here in Naples. We're at the 3rd Street South Farmers Market from 7:30 to 11:30 on Saturday mornings, November through May. We do pretty much every farmers market unless there's weather, then we won't be there if it's bad weather. But for the most part, we're there. You can also find Care2Grow medicinal mushroom products at care2grow.com. And you can learn more about the farm and our farm production there as well. We also do small farm production consultations. If you're looking to start a small farm or even a hobby farm, we sell blocks for people that are interested in learning how to do it or use them at their farms. We also do consultation where we can help people learn and see what resources are available in their area and design a system around that so that they can produce mushrooms for their local area markets. Hey, thanks for joining us today, guys, and seeing the Care2Grow mushroom farm. We'd love for you to connect with us at our local area farmers market or online or through Instagram at Care2Grow. We really take pride in producing the cleanest, most nutritionally available mushrooms and mushroom products right here in the U.S. for our local market.